Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about nuances and interesting play patterns in 5-color Enigmatic Incarnation in Pioneer. These are things that you might want to know if you're picking up Enigmatic Incarnation, or things that you might have missed if you've been playing it. Starting from really simple to maybe not so simple, and it's important to mention. First off, impending triggers still trigger up the beanstalk. I think it's really important to understand that. Even though a cost is reducing your paying an alternate cost, all it cares about is the cost in the top right. So whether you're playing Leyline Binding for 1, or paying 3 mana for a Overlord of the Hauntwoods, you will still draw a card off of an up the beanstalk on the battlefield. Second, and this kind of goes without saying and really just comes with playing the deck a lot, be aware of the enchantments you need to have on the battlefield, especially the turn you play an Enigmatic Incarnation, to grab the cards in your deck and to toolbox your deck properly. So especially when you have an Enigmatic Incarnation hand or you have a chance to draw it, you might have to change what enchantments you play earlier in the game so that you can grab the cards from your deck that are good in certain situations. And it's just something that's really important to keep in mind. One really good example of that, and another nuance, is if you Leyline Binding a token early, then when you sacrifice Leyline Binding to Enigmatic Incarnation, then your opponent doesn't get anything back, but you get an Atraxa or an Overlord of the Mistmoors. Both absolutely unbelievably good. And if you're just picking up the deck, you might be wondering why you're playing Zur Eternal Schemer. Now, while manning up a Leyline Binding is really cool, or blocking with a Death Touch Nowhere to Run or whatever, when you turn an impended Overlord into a creature, the way that it works is technically it's still impended. Its power and toughness are going to be the mana costs, like it said on Zur. But none of the text on that enchantment, now creature, has been removed just by it being impended. So when you attack with one of these Overlords, it'll still trigger the thing on the Overlord. So for example, if you impend an Overlord of the Mistmoors, you get two 2/1s. You play a Zur, activate an Overlord of the Mistmoors. It is now a 7/7 because that's its mana cost, and you attack with it, and it creates 2 more 2/1s. It is unbelievable. Also, as kind of another side note with that, when the impending counter falls off and there's no more impending counters on it, and technically this card isn't impending anymore, the Zur power and toughness overrides the power and toughness that is on the card. This one is kind of obvious, but is still important to mention. Remember that Yorion lets enter the battlefield triggers resolve again. Things like Nowhere to Run, you can turn a Yorion into a removal spell. But also, a big reason why we're playing it is it resets impending. By resets, I mean it just removes impending. So if I have 2 impended Overlords that are not creatures, and I play Yorion and bounce them, not only do I get the enter the battlefield triggers again, but they enter as their creature form, which can cause giant swings. And then the last thing that's important to mention is what to name with Cavern of Souls. So 90% of the time, you're going to be just naming Avatar so that your important creatures, basically, which are your avatars, can enter the battlefield. Also, it's important that you can cast Overlord of the Boiler Bilges if you draw it, because you can't really always rely on Overlord of the Hauntwood. Sometimes, depending on your hand, and you'll learn this just by playing a bunch, sometimes you will need to name Human or Wizard so that you can cast Zur. But also remember, when you side in Rurik Thar, that's red as well, and we don't have any red lands besides the Overlord of the Hauntwood land or Cavern of Souls, so you might need to name Warrior. And you want to name Warrior because we have other warriors in our deck, and you might as well make them uncounterable, and we don't have any other ogres in our deck. And having something like a Rurik Thar, especially if we're siding it in, having it stuck in our hand is a nightmare, even though our plan is to fetch it out. So those are the nuances and play patterns I wanted to mention to you guys. If you liked this video and want to see more videos like this, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.